The room was still. It felt as though time itself had stopped. Anna Thompson sat across from Caleb Vance, the new CEO of Nexora Biotech. Her hands rested on the polished table, but her mind was racing. She had been with Nexora for 15 years, dedicating herself fully to the company. Yet, today, everything was about to change. Caleb, a man nearly 20 years her junior and only 6 months into his role, spoke again. His words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. "We're going in a different direction," he said, his voice calm and assured. Anna barely heard the rest. Her thoughts were spinning. Different direction. The words echoed in her mind, growing louder, sharper. She had just built the future of this company. She had developed Neurofix, the miracle drug for Alzheimer's, and here she was, sitting in a room where the new CEO, a stranger to the company's core values, was telling her that it was over. Her hands tightened around the edge of the table, but she kept her composure. There was no anger, no frustration on her face. But inside, it was a different story. 15 years of hard work, late nights, personal sacrifices, all leading to this moment. Anna had pioneered Neurofix, a drug that had changed the game for Alzheimer's treatment. Nexora had grown from a small player to a biotech powerhouse because of her research. But now, this young man, barely out of his 20s, was deciding her fate. She met Caleb's gaze, steady and unblinking, her voice calmer than she expected. "What does that mean for me?" Caleb avoided her eyes, adjusting his designer tie. "The board feels the research division needs fresh leadership. Someone with innovative approaches, innovative approaches." Anna nearly laughed. Innovative approaches? She had been the one to develop Neurofix. She had taken this company from struggling to a billion-dollar empire. And now, she was being told she wasn't innovative enough. "Is that all?" she asked, her voice steady. Caleb pushed a thin folder toward her. "Your severance package. The legal team has outlined everything. It's standard." That word hit her like a slap. She opened the folder, scanning the details, her stomach tightening. The offer was insulting: 12 weeks of salary and 3 months of continued health benefits. It wasn't even a fraction of what she had contributed to this company. But she didn't let her emotions show. "I see," Anna said, closing the folder. "When do you want me to finish?" "Today would be best," Caleb replied, a hint of discomfort flashing in his eyes. "Human resources can help you pack your office," he added, as if to suggest she might suddenly turn violent. Anna stood, her expression unreadable. "That won't be necessary. I can clear my desk myself." As she walked toward the door, Caleb called out, "Claudia. This isn't personal, just business." Anna paused, turning back to face him. "Of course. Business." She walked out of the room, her head high, her heart pounding. Her colleagues watched her as she passed by, concern etched on their faces. But Anna didn't falter. She had been prepared for this moment, even if it still stung. This wasn't the end of her story. It was just the beginning. Anna Thompson wasn't just any scientist. She was the heart of Nexora Biotech's research division. When she first walked through the doors of the small lab back in 2008, Nexora was just a struggling pharmaceutical company, looking for its place in the crowded biotech industry. She was young, eager, and determined to make a difference. She had always been driven by a singular goal: to help people, to make a tangible difference in the world of science. Her dedication to this goal was unwavering. Over the years, Anna became the driving force behind several projects, but it was Neurofix that would ultimately define her career. The drug, developed to treat Alzheimer's, had been her brainchild, her life's work. She remembered the first breakthrough, the long nights spent in the lab, testing, analyzing, and refining the compound. It was her team's tireless effort that brought Neurofix to life. And when the clinical trials showed the promising results, it felt like a dream come true. Anna was more than just a researcher. She was a leader, a mentor to her team, and the face of Nexora's transformation from a small player into a biotech giant. Neurofix wasn't just a drug, it was a revolution. It changed the lives of millions of patients and their families. It took Nexora from near bankruptcy to a billion-dollar empire. Anna's contribution had been pivotal. But as the years passed, something started to shift in Nexora. The company that once operated on the ideals of scientific discovery and innovation began to change. As Nexora grew, so did its corporate structure. The arrival of Caleb Vance, the young CEO, marked the beginning of this shift. His focus wasn't on the groundbreaking research that Anna had pioneered, but on quarterly earnings, profit margins, and shareholder value. He was a businessman first, and a scientist second. Anna noticed the changes almost immediately. The board started placing more emphasis on the financial side of things, rather than the science that had made Nexora what it was. Meetings that used to be focused on new drug developments now revolved around marketing strategies and bottom-line results. Anna tried to voice her concerns, but her words were often met with silence. She could feel the change, but she wasn't ready to give up. She believed in the work she and her team were doing. Neurofix XR, the extended-release version of the drug, was a new breakthrough that promised even greater results. She had hoped that this new drug would reignite the company's passion for scientific discovery. But as time went on, it became clear that the company's priorities had shifted. Caleb was interested in one thing: how fast they could get the drug to market. The science didn't matter to him. All that mattered was the timeline and the profits. How quickly can we get this to market? He asked during one of their meetings. Anna had tried to explain the complexities of the process, the need for further trials and testing, but Caleb wasn't listening. His mind was already on the next big move, the next financial opportunity. It was then that Anna realized Caleb didn't understand the science. He didn't understand the significance of what they were doing. He saw the numbers, the stock price, the bottom line, but he didn't see the people they were helping, the lives they were changing. For Anna, this wasn't just about business, it was about making a difference. And in that moment, she knew that things were about to change, and she wasn't sure where they would leave her, but she couldn't just sit back and watch it all fall apart. Not after everything she had worked for, not after the success they had achieved together. She wasn't ready to give up, but she wasn't blind to the reality that her place in the company was becoming more uncertain by the day. The meeting was set for 10 a.m. Anna walked into the conference room, feeling the weight of the situation settle heavily on her shoulders. Caleb was already seated at the head of the table, his posture confident, almost too relaxed. Anna couldn't help but feel a pang of frustration. He didn't understand, he didn't appreciate the magnitude of the work she had done. The room, usually filled with the quiet hum of productivity, felt colder today. As she sat down across from Caleb, she felt a knot in her stomach. She had been here countless times before, but today felt different. The room felt like a stage set for a performance, one where the outcome had already been decided. Caleb looked at her briefly, then shifted his gaze to the papers in front of him. He cleared his throat. "Anna, I'm afraid we have some difficult news." Anna felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard the rumors. She had sensed the change in the air for months now. But hearing it out loud was different. Her body stiffened, but she kept her face neutral. "The board feels that the research division needs fresh leadership," Caleb continued, avoiding her gaze. "They think it's time for a change in direction. We've decided to let you go." For a moment, Anna didn't react. She couldn't. The words didn't seem to belong in the same room with her. Let her go. After 15 years, after everything she had contributed. This was it. The years of sacrifice, the sleepless nights spent in the lab, the blood, sweat, and tears, all of it was reduced to a few words spoken casually across a polished table. Caleb slid a thin folder toward her. "Here's your severance package. The legal team has outlined everything. It's standard," he added, almost as if he were reading from a script. "Standard," Anna repeated, her voice steady, though her hands clenched beneath the table. She opened the folder slowly, scanning the document. 12 weeks of salary. 3 months of health benefits. A pit formed in her stomach. This was how they valued her. This was how they appreciated 15 years of dedication. It was insulting. She had built Nexora into what it was. She had made the company billions, and this was what they offered her in return. Anna closed the folder without a word. Her calm exterior hid the storm raging inside. She didn't let them see the frustration, the hurt. She had trained herself not to react to things like this. "I see," she said, keeping her voice neutral. "When do you want me to finish?" Caleb hesitated for a moment, then responded, "Today would be best." His voice faltered slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. Anna nodded slowly. "Human resources can help you pack your office," Caleb added, almost as an afterthought. "Security reasons," Anna heard him mutter under his breath. As if she were a threat. She could feel the weight of those words, the implication that she might somehow pose a danger. After everything she had done for this company, this was how they treated her. She stood up, her face calm but her heart heavy. "That won't be necessary. I can clear my desk myself." She didn't want them to feel like they had power over her. She would walk out of this room on her own terms. As she reached for the door, Caleb spoke again, this time with a hint of discomfort. "Anna, this isn't personal. Just business." Anna paused, turning back to him with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Of course. Business." She stepped out of the room, her heart pounding. Her mind racing. As she walked down the hallway, she could feel the eyes of her colleagues on her. She kept her head high, her face neutral, but inside, she was screaming. The shock, the sting of betrayal, it all hit her at once. After 15 years of building this company, of putting her heart and soul into its success, she was being tossed aside like nothing more than a cog in the machine. But as Anna walked back to her office, she knew something that Caleb didn't. She had prepared for this. She had seen the writing on the wall, and she had planned accordingly. She wasn't going to let them walk all over her. Not now, not ever. She stood in front of her office door, staring at the nameplate that read Anna Thompson, Senior Director of Pharmaceutical Research. For a moment, it felt like everything she had worked for was slipping through her fingers. But then, something shifted within her. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The world didn't get to decide her worth. She did. And she was going to make sure Caleb and the rest of Nexora knew exactly who she was. Anna's steps slowed as she walked back to her office. The weight of the severance package in her hands felt heavier with every step. She had been dismissed, her contributions dismissed as easily as a routine business decision. It was a moment she had feared, but never fully imagined. Yet, even as the sting of betrayal still lingered, there was a sense of quiet resolve building inside her. She opened the door to her office, the familiar sights of her workspace bringing back memories of late nights spent poring over research, of breakthroughs that had changed the course of science. She paused, her fingers resting on the desk, looking over the framed photographs of her team. Her colleagues, her friends. They had been in this together. And they would be again, but this time, it would be different. Months before this moment, Anna had started to notice the shift in Nexora. The change in the way Caleb spoke about research, the way profits and financial growth were prioritized over scientific discovery. The warning signs were there. Subtle at first, but growing clearer. Anna knew the path ahead was going to be treacherous, so, in the quiet hours of the night, when the office was empty and the world outside was asleep, Anna began to prepare. She knew that, in the corporate world, things could turn on a dime. She couldn't afford to be caught off guard. For weeks, she had worked on Neurofix XR in the privacy of her home lab. The extended release version of Neurofix was her baby, a breakthrough she believed in with all her heart. But she couldn't let Nexora claim it as their own. Not without giving her the recognition she deserved. Not after all she had done for this company. The work was meticulous, the process tedious. But Anna was a scientist, and precision was her life. She recorded everything. Every experiment, every calculation, every discovery. Every step she took in her personal lab was documented, time-stamped, and filed away. It wasn't just for her peace of mind, it was a shield. She needed evidence. She needed leverage. One evening, she met with Victoria West, her trusted attorney, at a quiet cafe away from prying eyes. Victoria had been there for Anna through many legal battles, helping her navigate the complexities of intellectual property rights. But this time was different. This time, Anna was facing her own company. "I've been working on something," Anna said, her voice low, her eyes scanning the room. "I've been developing Neurofix XR outside of Nexora's offices. I've used my personal equipment. My time." Victoria leaned forward, her expression unreadable. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that I might be able to claim the patent for it," Anna replied, her voice steady, though a part of her felt nervous. The legal battle would be fierce, and she wasn't sure where it would lead. But she had no choice. Victoria's eyes flicked over the documents Anna had brought with her. She paused, studying the pages before speaking. "You're telling me that, technically, you've worked on this outside of company time, using your own resources. Do you have proof?" Anna nodded. "I've kept detailed records, lab notebooks, computer files, everything." Victoria's gaze softened slightly. "That could give us an edge. If we can prove that the core of Neurofix XR was developed outside of company time, we might have a case." It wasn't a guarantee. But it was enough of a gray area to give Anna leverage. "And that was all she needed," Victoria continued, her voice steady but with a hint of admiration. "You've got something here. We might be able to file a competing patent application as an individual inventor. It's not airtight, but it gives us a fighting chance." Anna took a deep breath. The weight of her decision was settling in. She had been with Nexora for 15 years. But now, she was taking a stand for herself. This wasn't just about a patent. It was about her right to be recognized, to protect what was hers, and to show the world that she wasn't a pawn in someone else's game. "I'm ready," Anna said, her voice firm. "Let's do it." Anna sat in front of her computer, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The quiet hum of the office seemed louder than usual. She had already written the draft of the patent application, a meticulous document that detailed every step of her work on Neurofix XR. It wasn't just a legal formality, this was her last line of defense. The decision she made in the coming hours would define the rest of her career. She stared at the screen, her heart pounding. This wasn't just about a drug. This was about everything she had worked for, everything she had believed in. Neurofix XR wasn't just a scientific achievement, it was her legacy. But she knew that, in the corporate world, legacy was something you had to fight for. For weeks, Anna had been working tirelessly, perfecting the details of the drug. After hours, when the office lights had dimmed and the hustle of the day had faded, she retreated to her home lab. There, she continued her research, refining Neurofix XR with the same passion that had driven her from the very beginning. Every experiment, every breakthrough, every data point was carefully recorded. She had to ensure that everything was in place, ready to be presented, ready to be protected. If Nexora wanted to lay claim to this new version of Neurofix, they would have to face her in court. The moment had arrived. She had reviewed the patent filing one final time. She checked the dates. The records, the supporting documents, everything was in order. Anna's hands trembled slightly as she clicked the button to submit the application to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. The weight of what she had just done sank in. There was no turning back now. The next few days were a blur of uncertainty. Anna couldn't stop thinking about the patent application. What if it didn't go through? What if Caleb and the board found a way to challenge it? But she couldn't afford to dwell on what-ifs. She had made her move, and now she had to trust that it was the right one. As the days passed, she kept up the appearance of being business as usual. But inside, she was bracing herself for the inevitable confrontation. Caleb's dismissal of her work had been painful, but it had also awakened something in her, a fierce determination. She wasn't going to let him or anyone else take what was rightfully hers. She continued to meet with her legal team, preparing for any potential battle. Victoria had been supportive, guiding her through the complexities of the patent process. But Anna knew that the fight was far from over. One afternoon, as she was reviewing some research notes, her phone rang. It was Victoria. "Anna, we've got a response from the USPTO," Victoria said, her voice calm but carrying a hint of excitement. Anna's pulse quickened. "What does it say?" "They've received the application. Everything seems in order. The clock is ticking now," Victoria explained. "It could take a few weeks for the process to move forward, but at least we know it's officially in the system." Anna let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. What happens next? Now, we wait. But don't worry, this is a good sign. The application is solid, and we've got a strong case. If Nexora tries to challenge it, they're going to have a hard time. For the first time in days, Anna allowed herself to relax. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give her a moment of peace. She had taken a huge risk, but it was the only path forward. As she sat back in her chair, looking out of her office window, a strange sense of clarity washed over her. This wasn't just about protecting a patent. It was about asserting her right to be seen, to be heard, to be respected. It was about showing the world that her value didn't come from the corporate machine, but from her own mind, her own dedication, and her own beliefs. The fight wasn't over yet. But Anna was ready for whatever came next. She had taken control of her destiny, and there was no turning back now. The days after Anna's patent application were a blur of anticipation. Every time her phone rang, her heart skipped a beat. She had prepared for this moment, but nothing could truly prepare her for the response she was waiting for. Then, one Thursday afternoon, it came. A letter arrived from Nexora's legal team. Anna didn't even need to open it to know what it was about. She had been expecting this. Caleb and the board were not the type to let go of something so valuable without a fight. But even though she had prepared herself, the anger that surged within her was impossible to suppress. The letter was blunt. It accused Anna of misappropriating company intellectual property and demanded she relinquish the patent for Neurofix XR. It was an attack on her character and her integrity, suggesting that she had somehow stolen from Nexora, the very company she had helped build. The audacity of it made her blood boil. Anna read the letter again, her hands clenched around the paper. She had expected a fight, but this was worse than she had imagined. Nexora's legal team was threatening litigation, claiming ownership of the intellectual property, and using Anna's dismissal as grounds for their case. The letter also included a reminder of the non-compete clause in her severance agreement, something they hoped would scare her into submission. But Anna was no longer afraid. This wasn't just about a patent anymore. This was about reclaiming her dignity, about proving that she wouldn't be bullied into silence. She had fought too long and too hard to let them take her work from her. She immediately called Victoria, her trusted attorney. "This is worse than I thought," Anna said, her voice tight with frustration. "They're accusing me of stealing. They think they can take the patent back." Victoria's voice was calm, measured. "I knew this might happen. They won't give up easily. But remember, Anna, we have leverage. We filed first, and the patent office has already accepted your application. But they're threatening to drag me through a legal battle. I can't afford to go up against Nexora's resources," Anna said, running a hand through her hair. Victoria was quiet for a moment before responding. "We don't have to fight them on their terms. You have every right to your work. The law is on your side. Anna. What we need is a counter move, something that shows them you're not backing down." The idea struck Anna like a bolt of lightning. She had something they didn't expect. A move they wouldn't see coming. She wasted no time. That evening, she drafted a counter offer to Nexora's legal team. She wasn't just going to defend herself, she was going to make them come to the table. The offer was clear and firm. If Nexora wanted the patent for Neurofix XR, they would have to buy it from her. Not only that, but she would retain royalties for the drug's continued use. She knew this was a bold move, but she also knew it was the only way to ensure that she was valued for her work. She wasn't going to let them dismiss her contributions so easily. The next day, Anna sent the counter offer to Nexora's legal department. It was a calculated risk. She knew Caleb and the board wouldn't take kindly to her demands. But she also knew that they had no choice but to acknowledge her position. If they wanted the patent, they would have to pay for it. She felt a strange sense of power as she hit send. For the first time since the dismissal, Anna felt in control of her fate. She had given Nexora an ultimatum. Now, it was their turn to respond. Days passed with no word from Nexora. The silence was deafening. Anna couldn't help but wonder what Caleb and the board were thinking. Were they scrambling to figure out how to deal with her? Or were they preparing to fight her in court? Finally, on a cold Monday morning, her phone rang. It was Victoria. "They're going to meet," Victoria said, her voice tinged with excitement. "They want to talk, to negotiate." Anna's heart skipped a beat. She had done it. The counter offer had worked. The meeting was set for the following day. Anna prepared herself for the battle ahead. This wasn't just about the patent anymore. This was about reclaiming her place in the company, about ensuring that her work was valued. She wasn't going to let Nexora and Caleb push her aside again. The next day, Anna walked into Nexora's headquarters with a quiet confidence. She had spent the previous night going over the terms of her counteroffer, making sure every detail was aligned with her vision. This meeting wasn't just about the patent, it was about her future, her legacy. It was about making sure that Nexora knew who she was and what she had contributed. As she entered the boardroom, Anna was met with a different atmosphere than she had expected. The usual air of corporate indifference was replaced by a certain sense of urgency. The board members, including Caleb, looked at her not with the usual dismissiveness but with something akin to apprehension. Anna wasn't sure if it was fear or respect. But she could feel the shift. The door closed behind her, and Anna took her seat at the table. Caleb, who had been so certain of his position just days ago, was now leaning forward, his expression tense. He didn't speak right away, and neither did anyone else. The silence hung in the air, thick with the weight of the negotiations to come. "Anna," Caleb said finally, his voice strained, "I have to admit, your counteroffer caught us off guard. The board isn't happy with it." Anna met his gaze, her voice steady. "I'm not here to make anyone happy, Caleb. I'm here to protect what's mine. This is about respect, and it's about fairness. You can't just dismiss me and expect me to walk away quietly." The board members shifted uncomfortably. Anna had never spoken to them like this before. She had always been professional, always kept her emotions in check. But today was different. This wasn't just a negotiation. This was a statement. Caleb glanced around the table before continuing. "We understand that, but this patent, it's a significant portion of the future of Nexora. We've made progress with Neurofix XR, and we're not about to let this setback derail our plans." "I'm not asking to derail anything," Anna said calmly. "I'm asking for a fair deal. If you want the patent, you can buy it from me. But I'm not giving up my rights without something in return. And I'm not signing away my future at Nexora either. If I come back, I need guarantees." The room fell silent again. Anna's offer was bold, and they all knew it. But there was no turning back now. Anna wasn't going to accept a quick fix, a handshake deal that left her without the recognition she deserved. She had given everything to this company, and now it was her turn to claim what was rightfully hers. After a long pause, one of the board members spoke. "What kind of guarantees are you looking for?" Anna smiled. "First, I need full autonomy in the research division. No more corporate interference. I want control over my team and our projects, with a guaranteed 5-year funding commitment. I also want an equity stake in the company. And I need a seat on the board." The board looked around the table, murmurs passing between them. It was clear that Anna's terms weren't easy to swallow. But the stakes were high, and they knew it. They couldn't afford to lose her, especially with the success Neurofix XR had already shown. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. "And if we agree to your terms?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. If you agree, Anna replied, her voice firm, I'll transfer the patent to Nexora, and we'll continue to build the future together. But it has to be on my terms. Another long pause followed. It was as if the weight of Anna's words had shifted the dynamic in the room. Caleb looked at the other board members. And this time, there was no hesitation in their eyes. They knew they needed Anna, and they knew they had to meet her halfway. After what felt like an eternity, Caleb finally spoke. All right, Anna. We'll agree to your terms. The board will support you. The words were like music to her ears. Anna had done it. She had secured her future, not only as a leader in the company but as a force to be reckoned with in the biotech industry. But this wasn't just a victory for Anna. It was a victory for everyone who had ever been overlooked, for every scientist who had been undervalued, for everyone who had ever been told they didn't have the power to make a change. Anna had shown that it was possible to take control of your own destiny. No matter how big the odds, as she stood to leave the room, the tension in the air had shifted. Caleb stood up as well, his hand extended. We'll have the formal paperwork ready, he said, his tone softer now. Welcome back, Anna. Anna shook his hand, but there was no bitterness in her smile. There was no need for that. She had done what she set out to do. She had fought for her rights, and now she would lead Nexora's research division to even greater heights. Anna returned to Nexora the following Monday, and the shift in the company was palpable. The moment she stepped through the doors of the research division, she felt it, the change in the air, the sense of quiet relief. Her colleagues, once uncertain of the future, now looked at her with newfound respect. There was no longer any tension about her departure, the tables had turned, and Anna was back at the helm. Her office had changed too. It was bigger, more open, with a view of the Long Island Sound. It felt fitting. This wasn't just a return to her old role, it was a new beginning, a fresh start in a space where her vision could truly come to life. She had earned this. And now, she was ready to lead. As the days passed, the changes became more apparent. Anna had full control over the research division, with guaranteed funding for the next 5 years. Her team, once bogged down by corporate interference, was now free to pursue their work with the autonomy they had always needed. Neurofix XR became the central focus of their research, but Anna didn't stop there. She pushed forward, envisioning new breakthroughs that could change the world. The new structure at Nexora, under Anna's leadership, began to foster a culture of scientific integrity and collaboration. The board, having learned from their past mistakes, gave her the space she needed to build a team that could take on the world's most challenging medical problems. Anna was no longer just a researcher, she was now shaping the future of biotechnology. In the weeks that followed, Anna's story became something of a legend in the biotech world. The media was buzzing with reports about her return to Nexora, her negotiations with the board, and the way she had turned the tables on the corporate giants. Her story was one of resilience, of standing up for what was right, and of reclaiming power that had been unjustly taken. It wasn't just Nexora that took notice. The entire industry began to shift. Several major companies reached out to Anna for advice and collaboration, eager to learn from her experience. They wanted to know how she had managed to protect her work and how she had secured her place at the top. Anna, ever humble, shared her journey and the lessons she had learned along the way, but her story was not just about success. It was about integrity, about knowing your worth, and about never allowing others to diminish your value. Anna's fight for Neurofix XR was a fight for all researchers, scientists who had given their hearts and souls to their work, only to be brushed aside by corporate greed. Anna had proven that when you stand firm, when you demand what you deserve, the world will take notice, and it did. As she sat in her office one afternoon, watching her team at work, Anna couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. She had fought for her place at Nexora, not for revenge, but for justice. And in doing so, she had transformed not only her own career but also the way the industry viewed researchers and their contributions. The road had been long, filled with challenges and setbacks, but Anna had emerged victorious. She had faced betrayal, fought back, and created something far greater than she had ever imagined. As Anna sat in her office, looking out at the bustling research division below, she couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought her here. The fight for Neurofix XR had been hard, but it had shaped her in ways she never expected. What started as a battle for her intellectual property had become a powerful reminder of the importance of standing up for what you believe in and knowing your worth. Her eyes scanned the team working below, bright, driven individuals who shared her passion for science. It was easy to see the difference now. The division was alive with excitement, new ideas, and, most importantly, freedom. Freedom to create, to innovate, and to take the risks necessary for scientific advancement. But there were lessons beyond the science, beyond the breakthroughs. Anna had learned something deeper through this process, something that transcended the world of research. The first lesson was about self-worth. Anna had always believed in her work, but she hadn't always believed in herself the way she should have. When Caleb and the board dismissed her, they didn't just dismiss her contributions, they dismissed her value. At that moment, Anna realized something important. Her worth wasn't tied to her position at Nexora or to the recognition she received. It was tied to the work she did, the people she helped, and the impact she made. That realization had been empowering. It had given her the strength to stand up for herself and to fight for her place in the world, not just as a scientist, but as a human being deserving of respect. The second lesson was about preparation. Anna had known that the corporate world was unpredictable. She had seen the shift in Nexora and recognized the signs of what was to come. Instead of waiting passively, she had prepared herself for the worst. She had documented her work, kept meticulous records, and sought legal counsel long before things went south. It was this preparation that gave her the leverage she needed to negotiate a fair deal when the time came. In the world of business and innovation, there is no room for complacency. Anna had learned that it wasn't enough to be good at what you do. You also had to be strategic, to anticipate challenges, and to have a plan for when things went wrong. The third lesson was about resilience. Throughout this process, Anna had been tested in ways she never could have anticipated. The emotional toll of being dismissed by the company she had helped build had been immense. Yet, despite the hurt and betrayal, Anna had never wavered. She had chosen to rise above it, not out of spite, but out of a commitment to the work she loved. Resilience wasn't about never feeling pain, it was about how you responded to it. Anna had chosen to channel her pain into action, using it to fuel her fight for what was rightfully hers. That resilience had led her not just back to Nexora, but to a position of power, where she could shape the future of biotech in a way that aligned with her values. Finally, the most important lesson Anna had learned was about the power of justice. She had spent years believing that the system would always reward hard work and integrity. But when that system failed her, she didn't back down. She fought for justice, not just for herself, but for all the researchers who had ever been overlooked or undervalued. Justice, Anna realized, wasn't something you waited for, it was something you had to create. It wasn't about revenge, but about ensuring that your contributions were seen, valued, and respected. And that, in the end, was the most satisfying victory of all. As Anna watched her team work below, she knew that her fight wasn't just about one drug or one company. It was about changing the way the world viewed science, innovation, and the people who made it all possible. She had reclaimed her place in the industry, and in doing so, had paved the way for future generations of scientists to stand tall and demand their worth. The battle had been difficult, but it had been worth it. And as Anna continued to lead Nexora into the future, she knew one thing for sure: this was only the beginning. A year had passed since Anna's return to Nexora. The company had undergone a transformation, both in culture and in leadership. Under her guidance, the research division was thriving. The spirit of innovation and collaboration that had been stifled for so long was now alive again. Anna had pushed her team to dream bigger, to reach further, and to challenge the status quo. Neurofix XR had become a success beyond anyone's expectations, and its impact on the medical world was undeniable. But for Anna, it wasn't just about the success of the drug. It was about creating an environment where her team could flourish, where the value of science was celebrated, not sidelined for profits. She had fought for that, fought for the freedom to lead with integrity and to ensure that every member of her team had the opportunity to make a real difference. She had also found herself in a position of influence. Not just within Nexora, but across the industry. Her story had become a beacon of hope for other researchers who felt their voices were being drowned out by corporate greed. In every interview she gave, Anna stressed the importance of protecting intellectual property, of standing up for what you believe in, and of never letting your worth be determined by someone else's standards. But it wasn't just her career that had been transformed. The entire biotech industry was starting to listen to her message. More and more companies were implementing policies to ensure that their researchers were treated fairly, that their contributions were valued, and that they were given the autonomy they needed to do their best work. It was a small but significant shift in an industry that had long been dominated by corporate interests. As Anna walked through the halls of Nexora's headquarters, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The company that had once almost discarded her had now embraced her as a leader. And it wasn't just the company that had changed, it was the entire industry. Researchers were being treated with more respect, and innovation was once again at the heart of biotech. One day, as Anna was walking through the new research facility, she was stopped by a familiar face. It was Howard Jameson, the founder of Nexora. He had retired years ago, but he had remained a trusted mentor and friend throughout the years. "Anna, I just wanted to take a moment to congratulate you," Howard said with a smile. "What you've done here. It's incredible. Not just for Nexora, but for the entire industry. You've shown that integrity and innovation can go hand in hand. I couldn't be more proud of what you've accomplished." Anna smiled back, feeling a warmth in her chest. "Thank you, Howard. It's been a long road, but it was worth it." Howard looked at her for a moment, his gaze thoughtful. "You've done more than just change Nexora. You've changed the way people think about research and innovation. And that's your legacy. It's not just about the drugs, or the patents, or even the success. It's about the culture you've built here. The way you've shown people that science matters, that the work we do has value." Anna felt a lump form in her throat. Howard was right. It wasn't just about the drug, or the money, or even the recognition. It was about creating a lasting impact, a legacy that would outlast her, and would shape the future of the industry for years to come. As the years went on, Anna's influence only grew. Nexora continued to break new ground in scientific research, but it was no longer just about the bottom line. The company had adopted a new ethos, one that placed scientific integrity above all else. And it was all thanks to Anna's unwavering commitment to protecting the value of research and the people who made it possible. But even more than the changes within Nexora, Anna's legacy lived on in the countless young scientists who looked to her as a role model. She had fought for them, and now they were fighting for a future where they could pursue their passions without fear of being undervalued or overlooked. One evening, after another long day of meetings and research updates, Anna stood in front of the window in her office, looking out over the sprawling campus of Nexora. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the buildings. For a moment, Anna allowed herself to simply be still, to reflect on how far she had come. She had been pushed aside, dismissed, and underestimated. But through it all, she had held on to her belief that science mattered, that integrity mattered, and that her work had value. And now, that belief had shaped the future. The legacy she had built wasn't just about the drugs they had developed or the millions of lives they had impacted. It was about creating a culture where people could come together to innovate, to create, and to make a real difference in the world. Anna knew that the road ahead would still be filled with challenges. There would always be new obstacles to overcome, new battles to fight. But she also knew that, no matter what, she had already achieved something far more important than any drug, any patent, or any financial success. She had built a foundation for future generations of scientists to stand on. And that, to her, was the greatest victory of all. As Anna sat at her desk, reflecting on everything that had transpired, she realized that her journey wasn't just about the patent, the battle for Neurofix XR, or even her return to Nexora. It was about something deeper, something more lasting. Her fight had become a symbol for something far more significant than the corporate world would ever acknowledge: the importance of self-worth, resilience, and the pursuit of justice. The lessons Anna had learned along the way were not just lessons for scientists or executives. They were lessons for anyone who had ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or dismissed. She had learned that when the world tries to diminish you, it's not your responsibility to shrink. It's your responsibility to stand tall, to claim your space, and to fight for what you deserve. One of the most powerful lessons Anna had learned was the importance of self-worth. For so long, she had tied her value to her work, to the success of Neurofix and the recognition she received. But after everything that had happened, after the betrayal, the dismissal, and the fight for the patent, Anna understood that her worth was not just defined by what she had achieved at Nexora. Her worth was intrinsic, rooted in her integrity, her passion, and her unwavering belief in the value of her work. In the corporate world, it's easy to forget that your contributions matter beyond the bottom line. But Anna had proven that you could fight for your values, for your work, and still come out on top. She had learned that no one, not even a billion-dollar company, could strip away the value of her contributions unless she allowed it. The second lesson was about preparation. Anna had known from the moment Caleb Vance was hired that things might change. She had seen the signs, the subtle shifts in priorities, the increasing emphasis on profits over science, and she knew that she couldn't afford to be caught off guard. So, she had prepared. She had kept detailed records of her work, had consulted with her lawyer, and had done everything she could to ensure she had a safety net. Preparation wasn't just about covering your bases, it was about empowering yourself to act when the time came. Anna had taken control of her own destiny, not by reacting to the situation, but by anticipating it. She hadn't waited for Caleb to make a move. She had made her own move first, and that had been the key to her success. Anna's third lesson was about resilience. It would have been easy for her to let the betrayal consume her. It would have been easy to walk away, to let the hurt and frustration define her. But Anna didn't let that happen. She chose to fight back, not out of anger, but out of a sense of justice and self-respect. She had endured setbacks, rejection, and moments of doubt, but she had never wavered in her belief that she was entitled to be recognized for her contributions. Resilience was about knowing that you could endure, that you could stand up and fight even when everything seemed stacked against you. It wasn't about being unbreakable, it was about knowing how to rebuild when life knocks you down. Anna's resilience had not only led her back to Nexora, but it had also reshaped the way the entire company viewed its researchers. She had shown them that they could stand firm in the face of adversity and come out stronger. Finally, the most important lesson Anna had learned was about justice. The journey she had embarked on was not just about winning a patent or regaining her position. It was about creating a fairer system for everyone, about ensuring that the people who contributed the most were treated with the respect and value they deserved. Anna had realized that justice didn't just happen, it was something you had to fight for. It wasn't about revenge, but about doing what was right, about ensuring that everyone had a seat at the table. She had seen too many researchers, too many people, pushed aside in favor of financial gain or corporate strategy. And she knew that if she didn't stand up, if she didn't demand fairness, no one else would. This fight for justice wasn't just her fight, it was the fight of everyone who had ever felt invisible, everyone who had been overlooked or dismissed. And in her victory, Anna had not only reclaimed her place at Nexora but had created a path for others to follow. As she reflected on everything that had happened, Anna understood that the real victory wasn't just about what she had achieved, it was about what she had taught others. She had shown them that no matter what, they could stand up for themselves, they could fight for their rights, and they could win. The corporate world might be built on power, influence, and profits, but Anna had proven that integrity, resilience, and justice were just as powerful. And those who stood by their values would always find a way to carve out a place for themselves in the world. In the end, Anna realized that her story was more than just a personal triumph. It was a testament to the power of standing tall in the face of adversity, to the importance of fighting for what is right, and to the belief that everyone has the ability to make a difference. And that was the legacy she would leave behind, a legacy not just of scientific achievement, but of fairness, integrity, and unwavering self-respect. The months passed quickly, and Anna's influence continued to grow. Her return to Nexora wasn't just about reclaiming her position, it was about rebuilding a culture that valued research and innovation over profits, and about setting a new standard for how scientists were treated in the corporate world. Under her leadership, Nexora had become a beacon for others in the industry. The research division thrived with a renewed sense of purpose. The team, which had once felt overshadowed by corporate interests, now operated with complete autonomy. They were free to pursue their work without the constraints of corporate greed or quarterly targets. Neurofix XR was no longer the only focus, it was the first of many groundbreaking treatments that Anna's team would develop, all built on the foundation of trust, respect, and integrity. The culture at Nexora had shifted. No longer was it a company that measured success solely by numbers. Instead, it focused on the people who made the discoveries possible, the scientists who, like Anna, dedicated their lives to improving the world. The success of Neurofix XR was celebrated, but more than that, the recognition of Anna's leadership and the emphasis on scientific integrity was the true triumph. But it wasn't just the company that had changed. The entire biotech industry had begun to shift in response to Anna's example. Research institutions and smaller biotech companies began to take notice. They adopted new policies that gave more power to researchers, ensuring they were compensated fairly, treated with respect, and given the autonomy to do the work that mattered. Anna had sparked a movement, one that was slowly but surely changing the landscape of the industry. As the years passed, Anna's reputation continued to grow, not just as a leading scientist, but as a role model for future generations of researchers. Her journey, from being dismissed by the very company she had helped build to becoming a force that reshaped the entire industry, was a story that inspired countless young scientists to fight for their rights, their ideas, and their place in the world. Anna's legacy wasn't just about the drugs she had developed or the patents she had fought for. It was about creating an environment where people could be free to pursue their passion for discovery without the fear of being undervalued or overlooked. She had created a culture of respect and integrity in an industry that had long been dominated by profit-driven motives. One evening, as Anna sat in her office looking out over the city, she reflected on everything she had accomplished. It had been a long road, filled with setbacks, challenges, and moments of doubt. But in the end, she had achieved something that no amount of money or corporate power could take away. She had built a legacy that would outlast her, one that would continue to inspire and empower future generations of scientists. Anna was proud of the work she had done at Nexora, proud of the team she had built, and proud of the change she had brought to the industry. But more than anything, she was proud of the person she had become. She had learned the true meaning of resilience, integrity, and justice. And she had shown the world that it was possible to stand firm, to fight for what was right, and to emerge victorious, without compromising who you were. As she looked at the team below, working tirelessly on the next breakthrough, Anna knew that this was just the beginning. The future was filled with endless possibilities, and she was ready to continue pushing the boundaries of science, all while ensuring that the values of fairness and integrity would guide her every step of the way. The industry had changed, but so had Anna. She had found her voice, and in doing so, she had not only changed her own life but had also helped change the lives of countless others who would come after her. And that was a legacy worth leaving behind. As Anna continued her work at Nexora, she found herself reflecting on the lessons she had learned, not just through her battles with the corporate world, but through her experience as a scientist and a leader. The journey hadn't just shaped her career, it had reshaped her perspective on life, leadership, and the very principles that guided her actions. Anna had always been driven by the desire to make a difference, but the events of the past few years had taught her a deeper, more nuanced truth. That true impact doesn't come just from what you create, but from how you create it and the values you uphold along the way. In her case, it wasn't simply about discovering new treatments or pushing boundaries in research. It was about ensuring that the process of discovery was done with integrity, respect, and fairness. The first and perhaps most important lesson Anna had learned was the power of integrity. For much of her career, Anna had believed that doing good work, work that changed lives, was the only thing that mattered. But her experience had taught her that integrity had to be the foundation of everything. In a world where profits often outweighed purpose, Anna had shown that staying true to your values, even when it feels like the world is stacked against you, is the key to creating lasting success. Integrity wasn't just about being honest with others, it was about being honest with yourself. It was about knowing when to speak up, knowing when to walk away, and most importantly, knowing when to fight. The moment Anna stood up for herself and for the researchers who had been sidelined in favor of corporate interests was a defining one. It was a reminder that standing up for what's right, no matter the cost, is the most powerful thing anyone can do. The second lesson Anna had learned was about resilience. When she had been dismissed from Nexora, she could have easily allowed that moment to define her. She could have been bitter, angry, or resigned to the fact that the corporate world was a place where merit didn't always matter. But instead, she chose to bounce back. She chose to fight. Not with anger, but with strategic thinking and calm determination. Resilience, as Anna discovered, wasn't about avoiding failure or hardships. It was about how you rise after each fall. Through her resilience, Anna was able to turn what seemed like an unfair setback into a powerful catalyst for change. Not just for herself, but for everyone around her. She used her own experience to inspire others to stand tall, to trust in their abilities, and to keep moving forward despite the obstacles they might face. As much as resilience was key to her journey, Anna also understood the importance of preparation. This lesson came not just from the legal strategy she had used to protect her intellectual property, but from the broader mindset she had cultivated throughout her career. In the world of science and business, the unexpected was always just around the corner. Anna had been prepared for the possibility of being dismissed, not because she expected it, but because she had learned early on that the only way to safeguard her future was to be ready for anything. Her ability to stay ahead of the curve, by documenting her work, by keeping careful records, and by planning for the worst, had been her greatest asset. Preparation wasn't about expecting failure, it was about ensuring that, when challenges arose, she would be ready to face them head-on. In the end, preparation was what allowed Anna to maintain control over her own destiny. Even when everything seemed to be falling apart, lastly, Anna's journey taught her the profound importance of justice. Throughout her battle, Anna had not only been fighting for her intellectual property but also for the principle that scientists should be valued for their contributions, regardless of corporate interests. The fight for justice wasn't about revenge. It was about ensuring fairness, ensuring that no one's contributions, no matter their position or background, were dismissed in the pursuit of profits. This commitment to justice shaped Anna's leadership style at Nexora. She made sure her team had everything they needed to succeed, but just as importantly, she ensured that they had a voice. Under her leadership, the research division became a place where everyone was treated with respect, where innovation thrived, and where every researcher knew their work mattered. As Anna continued to look toward the future, she knew that the path she had forged was only the beginning. She had already changed Nexora, and in doing so, had set a new standard for the biotech industry. But there was still much to be done. More breakthroughs to be made, more lives to be improved, but now, as she thought about the legacy she was building, not just for herself, but for the scientists who would follow in her footsteps, she felt a sense of peace. The fight she had fought wasn't just about a patent. It was about creating a world where integrity, resilience, and justice were more than just words, they were values that shaped the future of science. Anna knew that the future of biotech was bright. The next generation of scientists would inherit a world where their work, their ideas, and their contributions would be valued. And that was something she was proud to have played a part in. Her journey had been hard, but it had been worth it. And in the end, that's what mattered most. As the years went by, Anna found herself becoming more than just a scientist. She had transitioned from the heart of Nexora's research division to a figurehead for a new way of thinking, one that valued science not only for its potential to generate wealth but for its ability to change lives. Anna's leadership had transformed Nexora, but more importantly, it had impacted the biotech industry as a whole. Her journey, from betrayal to triumph, had inspired countless others to speak up for what was right and to fight for their worth. It wasn't just her return to Nexora that had changed things. The ripple effect of her actions spread far beyond the company's walls. In boardrooms across the industry, conversations about fair compensation, respect for researchers, and the importance of autonomy began to take hold. Companies, once focused solely on profit margins and stock prices, started to realize that true success came from valuing the people who drove innovation. Anna's legacy was more than just the success of Neurofix XR or her negotiations with Nexora's board. It was the cultural shift she had sparked. It was the way she had changed the narrative surrounding researchers, the way she had shown the world that scientists were not just cogs in a corporate machine but the driving force behind real-world change. Anna had made it clear that being a scientist wasn't just about working for a company. It was about being given the freedom to create and explore, to make mistakes and learn from them, and most importantly, to know that your work would be valued and protected. Her impact had left an indelible mark on the industry, and now, more than ever, scientists were being treated with the respect they deserved. As Anna looked at her team, she could see how much had changed. The research division that had once felt like a machine was now a collaborative space. There was a spirit of camaraderie that hadn't existed before. Her team felt empowered. Each scientist was encouraged to think outside the box, to challenge the norms, and to bring their unique perspectives to the table. The pressure to deliver quick results for the sake of profits had been replaced with a focus on long-term scientific breakthroughs. Anna knew she had achieved something that went beyond career success. She had cultivated an environment where people were free to pursue their passions and explore new ideas. But as fulfilling as this was, Anna also knew that this wasn't the end of the road. There was still so much more to do. The world of science was ever evolving, and there were always new challenges to face, but Anna wasn't afraid. She had proven that no matter the challenge, no matter how high the odds stacked against her, she had the power to overcome it. She had reclaimed her place. Not just at Nexora, but in the hearts and minds of the scientific community. In her office, the walls were now adorned with awards and recognitions, some from scientific organizations, others from advocacy groups that championed fair treatment for researchers. But for Anna, it wasn't the accolades that mattered most. It was the emails she received from young scientists, the messages from colleagues who had been inspired by her story, the thank you notes from families whose lives had been changed because of the research she had led. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. It was about more than the drugs or the patents. It was about ensuring that those who dedicated their lives to science were treated with the respect and dignity they deserved. And in that, Anna had succeeded beyond what she had ever imagined. Years after her victory, Anna found herself sitting in a quiet cafe, reflecting on her journey. The world around her was busy, but she felt at peace. She had made a difference. She had fought not just for herself, but for everyone who believed in the power of research to change the world. And now, as she looked ahead, she knew that the seeds she had planted would continue to grow. The world of biotech had changed, and it had changed because Anna Thompson had shown the world what it meant to fight for what was right, to stand firm in the face of adversity, and to build something lasting that would benefit not just one company, but the entire industry. And so, as Anna sat back and took a deep breath, she felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. Her legacy was secure. It wasn't just about the science she had created, it was about the culture of respect, fairness, and integrity she had fostered for the future. As time passed, Anna found herself reflecting more and more on the path she had walked, the battles, the victories, and the quiet moments of introspection. The world she had fought to reshape was slowly becoming the world she had always hoped for. It wasn't perfect, but it was a place where scientists, researchers, and innovators were finally given the recognition and respect they deserved. The change wasn't just in the structures of companies like Nexora. It was in the hearts and minds of people across the industry. Anna's name had become synonymous with fairness and innovation, but more than that, it had become a symbol of perseverance. She had defied the odds, refused to be pushed aside, and in doing so, had created a ripple effect that would echo through generations of scientists to come. It wasn't just about winning her fight for Neurofix XR or securing a better deal for her team. It was about showing the world that a single person's determination could change the course of an entire industry, but Anna didn't think of herself as a hero. To her, she was just someone who had done what was right. She had stood up for the value of science, the value of her work, and the work of her colleagues. And by doing so, she had not only transformed her own career, but she had also played a pivotal role in changing the culture of an entire sector. It wasn't always easy, though. The constant pressure, the ongoing battle to ensure that her vision for Nexora remained intact, sometimes left Anna feeling exhausted. There were moments when she wondered if the fight was worth it, if the strain on her relationships with the people she cared about was too great. But each time, she would remember why she had fought in the first place. She had fought for the future. She had fought for the generations of scientists who would follow her. For the ones who would come to know that their work mattered, that they had a voice, and that they didn't have to choose between success and integrity. Her heart swelled with pride when she thought of the young scientists who had come to Nexora under her leadership. They were eager, passionate, and unafraid to challenge the status quo. Anna had always believed that the true power of science lay in its ability to question, to explore, and to discover. Now, she had created an environment where that power could be fully realized. One afternoon, as Anna stood in the doorway of the research facility, watching her team at work, she realized how far they had come. She saw her colleagues deep in discussion, sketching out new ideas on whiteboards, experimenting with compounds, and making breakthroughs. There was an energy in the room, a creative hum that hadn't been there before. Anna had fostered a culture of collaboration, where ideas flowed freely, where failure was seen as a stepping stone, and where every voice was heard. She knew that this was her legacy, the foundation she had built for the future of science. It was a legacy not of accolades or awards, but of a movement that had changed how people viewed research and the role of scientists in society. Anna had shown that science was not just a career, but a calling, and that those who dedicated their lives to it deserved to be recognized and respected. As Anna sat in her office that evening, gazing out at the city skyline, she felt a quiet satisfaction. She had done what she set out to do. Nexora was not just a company, it was a model for what the future of the biotech industry could look like. It was a place where scientific discovery was prioritized, where researchers were valued, and where integrity was at the core of everything they did. Looking back, Anna realized that the most important lesson she had learned wasn't about how to negotiate a patent or secure funding. It was about understanding her own worth and standing firm in the face of adversity. She had fought for justice, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or unheard, and now, as she looked toward the future, Anna knew that her journey wasn't over. The industry was changing, and there was still so much more to do. But for the first time in a long while, Anna felt at peace. She had fought the good fight, and in doing so, had made the world a better place, not just for scientists, but for everyone who would benefit from the discoveries they made. Her legacy was secure. Not because of the patents or the accolades, but because of the way she had changed the world. And that, to Anna, was the greatest victory of all. Years later, as Anna sat in the quiet comfort of her home office, reflecting on the journey she had taken, she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of fulfillment. The chaos of the earlier years, those moments of uncertainty and betrayal, had given way to a quiet strength, a sense of purpose that guided her every action. Her story, one of resilience, integrity, and justice, had become a legacy that reached far beyond the walls of Nexora and the biotech industry. It had become a blueprint for anyone who believed in the power of doing things the right way. Looking around her office, Anna saw the many awards and recognitions, each one a testament to her hard work and perseverance. But as she gazed at the walls lined with reminders of her achievements, she felt no desire for more. The accolades had been important at first, but they had taken on a different meaning over time. They were reminders of the values that had guided her actions: integrity, fairness, and a commitment to ensuring that the future of science would never be compromised for the sake of profit. What mattered most to Anna now wasn't the recognition or the success of Neurofix XR. It was the lives she had changed, the countless patients who had benefited from the drug, the young scientists she had mentored, and the industry she had helped reshape. It was the knowledge that she had been part of something bigger than herself, a movement that had inspired a shift in how the world viewed research and innovation. Anna's phone buzzed on the desk, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from one of her former colleagues, James, the senior researcher who had stood by her during the most difficult times. He had become one of the leading figures in Nexora's research division, and his work had led to groundbreaking discoveries in the field of neurodegenerative diseases. "We did it, Anna," the message read. "We've just secured approval for the new treatment you envisioned. This is it, the future is here." Anna smiled, feeling a wave of pride wash over her. The work they had started together all those years ago was still thriving, evolving, and making a real impact in the world. It wasn't just about Neurofix anymore, it was about the doors they had opened for future breakthroughs. As she typed a quick response, Anna realized that the journey she had set out on wasn't just about creating a successful drug or achieving personal success. It was about the collective effort of a team of people who had come together with a shared mission. It was about building a community of researchers who valued collaboration over competition, integrity over shortcuts, and innovation over profit. In the years following her return to Nexora, the company had continued to flourish. It had become a model for other companies in the industry, proving that success didn't have to come at the expense of ethics. The culture Anna had helped create was now embedded in the company's DNA. Young scientists entering the field now looked to Anna's example. Knowing that their work, their ideas, and their contributions would be valued, Anna often received messages from these young scientists, messages of gratitude and admiration. They saw her as a mentor, someone who had paved the way for them to pursue their dreams in a world that often placed profit before principle. It was these messages that kept Anna going. The knowledge that the changes she had made would continue to shape the industry long after she had moved on. Anna had also become a sought-after speaker, invited to universities, conferences, and industry panels to share her journey and the lessons she had learned. But even as she spoke to larger audiences, she always emphasized one simple truth: that the real power in any field, whether science or business, lies in the people who are willing to stand up for what's right, no matter the cost. For Anna, this wasn't just about a career or an industry. It was about purpose. And the purpose she had found was bigger than she had ever imagined. It was about changing the world for the better, not just through scientific discovery, but through the way those discoveries were made and shared. As Anna sat back in her chair, the evening sun casting a warm glow across the room, she felt a quiet peace settle in. Her work wasn't finished, there would always be new challenges to face, new discoveries to make. But for now, she had created something lasting. She had built a legacy that would continue to inspire those who followed in her footsteps. A legacy not just of scientific breakthroughs, but of doing things the right way, of treating people with respect, and of fighting for justice. Anna's future was no longer just about what she could achieve, it was about the future she had helped build for others. A future where integrity was not just a value, but the foundation upon which everything else was built. And in that future, Anna knew she would always have a place. Anna's time at Nexora was coming to a close. After years of leading the company, shaping its culture, and transforming the biotechnology industry, it felt like the right moment to step back. But even as she prepared for this next chapter, she knew that her legacy would live on. It wasn't in the walls of the research division or in the stacks of patents she had secured. It was in the people she had mentored, the research she had inspired, and the changes she had fought for. She had always said that her greatest accomplishment wasn't the drugs, the discoveries, or the company's success. It was the way she had built a place where people could believe in their work, in their worth, and in their ability to make a difference. Now, with the industry in a better place, she felt confident that it would continue to grow, evolve, and thrive. Her time at the helm had been important, but it was time to let others carry the torch forward. Anna had already begun to pass on her responsibilities to the next generation of leaders at Nexora. James, who had been by her side since the beginning, was now leading a new team that was poised to tackle some of the most exciting challenges in the field of neurodegenerative diseases. His work on their upcoming treatments was groundbreaking, and Anna knew that under his leadership, Nexora would continue to flourish. She was proud of the work she had done to shape the company's future, but Anna's legacy was not confined to one place. The industry itself had changed, and that was something she could never have predicted when she first started out. What had begun as a fight to protect her own contributions had grown into a movement that had reshaped the landscape of science. Researchers and innovators were now recognized not only for their ideas but for their integrity. Their work mattered. They mattered. Anna's final day at Nexora came quietly. She had spent the last few weeks in reflection, tying up loose ends, sharing her thoughts with the people who had worked so hard by her side, and leaving behind a blueprint for the future. When she stood in front of the team for the last time, they all knew that it wasn't goodbye, it was the start of a new era. "Thank you," Anna said, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "We've done something remarkable here. And it's not just because of me. It's because of all of you. The people who stayed, who fought, and who never gave up on our mission. What we've built together is something that will outlast all of us." The room was silent for a moment, and then, one by one, her colleagues stood, clapping in appreciation. It wasn't just about the work they had done. It was about the way Anna had led them, with heart and purpose, and the way she had shown them that integrity, even in the corporate world, would always win out in the end. As Anna left the building for the final time, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. She had given everything she could to Nexora, to the industry, and to her team. She had fought for her place, and in doing so, had made sure that the next generation of scientists would never have to fight the same battles. The world was changing, and Anna had played a pivotal role in that change. But she also knew that it wasn't the end of her journey, it was the beginning of something new. Years after Anna left Nexora, her legacy continued to influence the biotechnology industry. The principles she had instilled of fairness, respect, and the value of scientific integrity had become the foundation upon which the industry now stood. The companies she had once worked for were now leading the charge in ensuring that researchers were treated as equals, their contributions celebrated as they should be. Anna, now retired from the industry, spent her days mentoring young scientists, speaking at conferences, and supporting organizations that championed the rights of researchers. She had become a voice for those who had been overlooked and undervalued, helping to create a world where scientific innovation could flourish without compromising ethics. As she sat at a small cafe one afternoon, reflecting on everything she had accomplished, Anna felt a deep sense of contentment. She knew that her fight for fairness in the corporate world had set a new standard, one that would outlast her and inspire future generations. The changes she had helped bring about had created an environment where scientists could thrive, where their work mattered, and where their voices were heard, but Anna also knew that her story was not unique. There were countless researchers out there who had fought similar battles, and many who still were. Her role was simply to show them that it was possible to stand up for what was right, no matter how daunting the journey. And as she reflected on all the people who had supported her along the way, her colleagues, her friends, her legal team, she realized that her legacy wasn't just about the battles she fought alone. It was about the relationships she had built, the community she had created, and the knowledge that together, they had changed the world. Anna had always believed that the greatest impact a person could have was through their work, but she had come to realize that true impact lay in the connections we build and the way we inspire others to rise above the challenges they face. She had given everything to Nexora, to science, and to those who would follow in her footsteps, and in return, she had built something far more valuable than any patent or research paper, a community that valued integrity, innovation, and respect. As she closed her eyes and took a deep breath, Anna smiled. She had fought the good fight, and in doing so, had left the world a better place. Her work, her legacy, and the future of science would continue long after she had gone. The road she had paved was solid, and the scientists who followed would walk it with the same courage, integrity, and vision that she had shown, and for Anna, that was the greatest victory of all.